those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
Welcome to Steer the Line, where every Friday we give you NFL analysis, fantasy football breakdowns, and sports betting previews. I'm Christian Giordani, joined alongside Loud Esmond and Rocky Giordani. Now let's get ready to steer the line.
All right, Loud Esmond running the show tonight because Christian Giordani, our usual host, is sick as a dog. So he's behind the scenes tonight running things, but he won't be on camera, on stage, on the show because he is not feeling well, under the weather. So it's me. I am joined by the two Scotts. Scott Steen, known as the Steamroller in the handicapping world. He is one of the deans of sports handicapping, which means, like me, he's old and he's been around a long time.
Absolutely.
There you go. Scott Keyport, he is the book manager at my favorite place to play, Little Creek Casino Sportsbook. I did cheat on you guys last week. I was at Muckleshoot, but that's only because I was meeting Gabe Morency there, the host of Sports Rage, on Sports Grid Late Night. The national sports betting network, one of the two, which is you have two majors. You've got Sports Grid and you've got VSiN. And Sports Grid, the Sports Rage show, you can catch me there on Tuesday nights, 8:30 Pacific usually, although they put me on at 8 this last week, 8 Pacific, 8:02 Pacific to about 8:30. Sometimes I come on at 8:15, sometimes 8:30, and then I'll go closer to 9 o'clock. But I'm a regular Tuesday night guest now on the Sports Rage show with Gabe Morency on late night. Scott, you've done a couple appearances there.
Yeah, I'm what you would call a semi-regular. I'll be on there Monday night talking Chiefs Monday Night Football. He always likes to have me on when the Chiefs are on national TV, which seems to be pretty frequently. So you can catch me there. Usual time is around 8:30 or so Eastern time, and we'll do a half hour with Gabe, and then a lot of fun, good show. Definitely everybody should tune in, not just when Loud and I are on, but when everybody's on.
Scott Keyport, how are things there at the Little Creek Sportsbook?
Well, Loud, I think the public likes to think that the casinos always win, but we got hammered in October, and I'm happy to see it's November. I actually lost money on the NFL in October. The public, the sharps, everybody killed me. So I am happy to see November. Let's move on and turn the page.
Well, however, the sportsbook still made money because you made it up on other sports, correct?
I think, if you see every sportsbook director or manager right now, they are loving the fact that the World Series ended in October. So we cleared out all our futures bets and all of our World Series bets. That goes into the big budget pile, and it made my NFL disaster look a lot better. So I was rooting for a sweep. I didn't care who it was, and just get that money on the books in October so that the big boss doesn't come down and yell at me.
Well, but you're not. Let's explain to the public how this works. You, as the sportsbook manager, are not setting the lines for all these games. You have data that you get from other larger networks, and I don't want to name any brand names, but there are 3 or 4 major groups that supply these lines. You would recognize the names if I threw some out there. Let's just say that they also have online betting sites that are pretty popular. Just leave it at that. And Scott Steen, this has been going on forever, right? There's 1 or 2 or 3 people that set the numbers.
Well, and I know Scott can back me up on this. Back in the old days when we first started, every book actually kept a book, and they kept power ratings, and they made their own lines, and you'd find a lot of inefficiencies up and down the strip and things like that. But yeah, with technology comes changes, and one of the changes is you've narrowed it down to a lot fewer suppliers. And it's a lot harder to find inefficiencies and get involved in an arbitrage situation. Scott, would you agree with most of that?
Yeah, that's absolutely it. It's a labor thing for us. I mean, we could build out a whole trading team, hire a bunch of people digging on spreadsheets and things. But, we partner with our software company, and they can feed the lines to a whole group of people. And so, yeah, unfortunately, though, my bosses, they seem to schedule the budgets by month. Even though I try to explain to them my money comes by season, my money comes in the NFL season, my money comes in March Madness, there is no money in June and July when it's just baseball. They always come to me at the end of the month and go, what's your budget looking like, or your revenues looking like? And so a month like October, even though for the sports better, it's just week 8 or week 9 of the NFL season, I have a whole series of meetings that I have to get to and explain what's going on.
All right. So here we are. Actually, it makes me sad to say this, but we're getting late in the college football season already.
Yeah.
And we are basically halfway through the NFL regular season already. It's just it's funny, Scott, as a guy who's a sports bettor, I don't know if this is the same for you, but for me, February to September takes forever. And then September to January is gone in a blink.
Well, I'd probably say more like April for me. I love I love that part of the NBA season. I love conference play in college basketball, conference tournaments, and of course the big dance. So I get pretty stoked in the spring for late February, March, and early April. But yeah, from April to September, not a lot, unless you like Canadian football, not a lot going on.
Which, by the way, they talk about a lot on the Gabe Morency show because he's from Vancouver.
Yep.
Well, I just paid out a Canadian football ticket to one of my sharper bettors, and I was laughing at him. I was like, I got to start watching you on that Canadian football, because then he came in Thursday night. He made his biggest bet of the season on the Jets, and that line, it confused me aloud. We sort of talked about it. It looked fishy to me, but when he came in and hit the Jets, I got a little knot in my stomach. I'm like, oh, he's. Yeah. And then he paid for that bet with his winning CFL bet. So, there's money to be made all over the place.
I can tell you, as somebody who spent a lot of time in casino management, nothing the casinos hate worse than when you beat them with their own money.
So last night, let's talk about that game, the Jets and the Texans. And Scott, you and I texted about this because we were just talking about your appearance come on here Friday night. And I said, hey, this looks weird to me. I looked at all the numbers, and there was absolutely no reason for the Jets to be favored in that game, Scott. Steamroller, none.
No. Somebody knew something, and it wasn't me, because I dove right into that brick wall, and broke my neck. The play that I really liked in that was the Mixon over yards. I saw it anywhere from 81.5 to 84.5, and that was an easy hit as he went 24 for 106. But as far as the Houston Texans side, the Jets took care of Stroud last year, and they did pretty much the same thing again last night as he went just 11 for 30 for $190. No TDs, just a pretty all-around dreadful performance. And this is a team, other than Mixon running the football, they really couldn't get anything going at all. So
Tank Dell did okay, I know, because he's one of my fantasy football wide receivers.
Yep.
He scored about 24 points.
Yeah, he was
no touchdowns, but a lot of yards.
He was 6 for 126. He had 9 targets, 21 yards per catch, and Woods had 2 for 20 for 44. And then that was pretty much it.
But the lesson here for the public bettor is when you see a line that makes absolutely no sense. And I kept trying to make sense of it. I kept trying to find an argument why the Jets should be favored in that game. And every number I looked at said no.
I agree.
And I just couldn't find a reason. And then I went, okay, every time that I see that, where there's a number that makes no sense, I go, somebody knows something I don't, and I'm going to bet with that side, even though I can't find it. And that's what I did. And so, I ended up, just because it seemed fishy, I went with that side of it and cashed. Scott, what was the action for you guys on that game last night?
Like I said, we got the sharp bet in on the Jets, but really, I think our ticket count was on Houston. I think a lot of people were seeing, what the three of us were seeing, and but yeah, and when the guy drops the ball right before the end zone, you're going, yeah, this is about what I expect from the Jets. Like, I don't even know.
Right.
And I don't even know if that's what made that line feel weird to me was anything statistical. It just felt like the Jets have been cursed all season long. And so maybe now I can take a little bit unbiased look at them a little bit more. They aren't going to miss some kicks. They aren't going to drop balls before the end zone. Maybe they'll actually win a few games.
Scott, let me ask Scott a quick question, Loud.
Yeah.
Do you still have the freedom to change your line based on the individual action you're taking at the casino?
Yeah. Okay. Our books are all, the sports books are all independent. Even ones that have the same feed provider will be an independent book usually.
Right.
And so we can adjust that if we want. My property's small enough that I just don't get the 6-figure bets or multiple 5-figure bets that you would really need to push a line.
Right.
So if I
come in tomorrow morning and I bring a bag of $100,000 on the Penn State Ohio State game, I can push your line a point or two.
If you could get that bet in, yeah, we probably would have to adjust it.
All right, let's talk. Scott, do you want to talk about that game, Penn State Ohio State?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. Ohio State traveling to Happy Valley, probably going to be a whiteout there. Penn State road favorites 3.5, or Ohio State road favorites 3.5 points over the Nittany Lions. Tell me if we've seen this movie before. Penn State was 7-0 in 2017, lost to Ohio State. 4-0 in 2018, lost to Ohio State. 8-0 2019. Guess what happened? That's right, lost to Ohio State. Exactly. Last year, 6-0. Where did they go? Ohio State, and they got beat. Ohio State faces what is on paper appears to be an elite defense, but if you open up the hood and get underneath it a little bit, you find out that Penn State hasn't faced a top 30 offense yet and just one top 50 passing attack. That was the 13th ranked USC passing attack. Guess what? USC put up 30 on them and led by 2 touchdowns at one point in that game. And James Franklin is not just a bad ball coach against Ohio State. He's a bad ball coach against any kind of top 10 team. He is just 2-17 straight up at Penn State. Ohio State, they're going to do it again. They roll, lay the 3.5.
Where's the action in your book, Scott Keyport?
This is actually sort of a rare game for us in that it's split almost 50-50 across everything. Point spread, money line, even the totals. Usually the totals, everyone loves the over. That one's almost 50-50. So doesn't look like the sharps or the public is really, hammered aside on this yet. It's just kind of everyone's got their own opinion on it.
Well, that's the best case scenario for a sportsbook manager, right? 50% in this hand, 50% in this hand. Thank you. I'll take my VIG in the middle and be guaranteed a profit.
No, Loud. I want it all. I want it all on one side and to win the other. The best case scenario is I win all the money.
Okay. All right. We see
I'll comp you at dinner if I win all your money.
Scott, is that more of an old school thing? I mean, you guys with all the advanced analytics and everything, I know sports books aren't as afraid to take a side as they used to be. If you think the players are wrong, do you feel good about taking a side?
I mean, yeah, it kind of just, it depends, it sort of still just depends on like I said, last night when I have one of my regular sharp bettors come in and he put a bet down, I paid attention. Other people come in, maybe they might be a big money bettor, but they're sort of a gambler. They just like to come in, have some drinks, and their pocket money is a different level than other people's pocket money. Then I don't worry about it so much.
You don't get that same feeling in the pit of your stomach when Loud comes in and lays $15 down.
Oh, I see how it is.
Hey, I get mad when I lose $1. That's why I don't gamble that much, right? So it's what you bet what it matters to you is what makes it fun. You got to have fun gambling, right? We want responsible gambling. What is a fun amount to gamble that makes the games interesting?
Speaking of that, so Gabe Morency and I are at the sports book on Sunday night. And he was telling me that he had come in earlier in the day before he left for the Buffalo Bills game. And he had about $8,000 on him. and was dropping $500 to $1,000 a bet as he was placing bets on that game and several others. And he said a little crowd formed around him, and people were like, oh. And he thought it was so weird because he's like, why is a $500 bet a big deal to you guys? You know, because you go to Vegas. I mean, it's not unusual.
No,
It's not unusual in Vegas to see people bring a bag of cash and start pulling out 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand on that. All right, 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand on this. Gabe was like laughing because he's like, oh my God, what do these people bet, like $20? And I say, yeah, that's honestly probably the average ticket.
Yeah.
Scott, what is the average ticket at your sports book? Do you know?
that is a good question. You know what? I'm going to pull up a spreadsheet while you guys talk about the next game, and I will get you some statistics on that.
All right, Scott, let's talk about the next game that was on your list.
Okay.
This is Duke Miami.
Yeah, a little ACC battle.
By the way, I have a premium pick on this, so I can't talk about it. Over at Winners and Whiners.
Did you want to talk about the Penn State Ohio State? We didn't get your opinion on that, buddy.
You know what? I don't have an opinion on that game.
Okay, good chat. This is a kind of a revenge spot for Miami as they lost 45-21 last year in Mike Elko's first year leading the Duke program. But here's the deal that people don't remember. In that game, it was a nightmare for the Hurricanes. They turned the ball over 8 times, loud, 8 times.
8
in that 24-point loss. This is a Miami offense that is hitting on all cylinders right now. They average 46.8 points per game, and they have scored 36 or better in each of their games so far. They are the number one passing offense in the country, 366 yards per game. Cam Ward is the Heisman favorite at this point over Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. He's thrown for 27-40, 24 touchdowns, 68%, and just 5 picks. He's thrown 48 passes of 20 or better yards. And if you think that's a lot, you're absolutely right, because it leads the country. Duke's got a pretty nice quarterback there in Malik Murphy, but he has struggled with his accuracy, anything over 10 yards, and that leaves them in some third and unmanageable situations. They are only converting on third down 30.1% of the time. That is 127th in the nation. They can't run the football. I look for them to have a really hard time. They average just 3.5 yards per carry on the ground. I think this is going to be another chance as Cam Ward cements his Heisman Trophy run and the Miami Hurricanes roll. I like we're getting the extra hook there. I'll lay the 20.5 with the Miami, Florida Hurricane.
And finally, Wisconsin, Iowa was your third pick you wanted to talk about on the show here tonight in college.
I do. It's kind of a counterintuitive play as the Badgers travel to Iowa City to take on the Hawkeyes. We've got a total in this game of 41.5. And I know Scott can probably back me up on this. There's been a lot of people who have lost a ton of money betting Iowa unders this year because they were such money in the bank last season. However, this season, the over is hit in 7 of 8 contests for the Iowa Hawkeyes. And it's kind of a two-pronged reason for that. Number one, they're giving up 21.7 points per game. Still very good, 35th in the nation. However, last year, they were 4th in the nation when they gave up just a hair under 15 points per contest. But the big difference for this Iowa team is they've got a, what do you call it, an offense. And that's a brand new thing for them.
Well, hang on. Scott Steen,
yes.
Is offense legal in Iowa now?
It is, and it used to not be legal anywhere east of Ames, but it is now legal throughout the entire state. Yes,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. They're 55th in the nation in scoring, still not fantastic. They average 27.9 points per game, but it is head and shoulders above last year when they were a bottom 3 scoring team in the FBS, putting up just 15.4 points per game. They're still setting lines like it was last year, and the Sharps are taking advantage of them. I'm going to take this one to go once again over the total of 41.5.
All right, Scott Keyport, you were doing research while Scott Steen was talking.
Yeah.
What do we got?
Okay, first I'll tell you with that Wisconsin game, it looks like we are flooded with over money too. So that everyone else is picking up what you're laying down on that. That Miami game, there's some funny stuff there. Actually got a fair bit of money line bets on the Hurricanes, which I think that's probably parlays, people trying to pump up their parlays with an easy win.
Right.
So I have a feeling we'll be rooting for Duke to, the money line. Yeah, that one's an odd one. But yeah, so our average bet, I pulled up my super duper spreadsheet. That's what I tend to spend a lot of time in Excel. Our average bet amount is $45. So, and if we break it down between straight and parlay, they average straight bet $66. The parlay bet's $28. And I think that ratio is about right, is when you see just a straight bet, people go for the higher dollar amounts. And then people like to take pot shots with the parlays, smaller amounts. So even if you're a $20 straight better, every once in a while, you're going to throw a $5 parlay out and try and hit the jackpot on it.
Of course, tomorrow night, betting in the break, winners and whiners, you will catch me on there. And then I have Tom Macrina joining me. Scott Keyport will also be on there. That's going to be over in the Winners and Whiners Network. We'll be talking about the late college games and the early NFL games. I have some takes on the NFL that I just want to throw out there. I don't have any official NFL bets up anywhere yet because this was not a week where there were any early lines that I went, oh, I have to get this now. And if there's no lines that I feel like I have to get this now, I'm much more likely to wait till later in the week, Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, to kind of finalize what I'm going to do because I'm waiting for injury news and other things. Speaking of which, significant injury news, Puka Nacua left practice early on Wednesday with knee trouble in the same knee that he injured. He's now highly questionable. DK Metcalf for the Seahawks is now ruled out of that game. And that could have some major effect.
And
Derek
they have
Carr,
Noah Fant, the
Noah Fant,
tight end.
Tight end is also out.
Is out.
Yep. And then teams getting some players back. New Orleans Saints will have their entire starting offensive line back except for their center. They also get Derek Carr, Taysom Hill, and Chris Olave. Will all be playing together for the first time along with Alvin Kamara since week 2. Scott, let's talk about the Saints for a second. Games 1 and 2, they looked absolutely unstoppable. And then basically they lost almost their entire offensive line.
Right.
Taysom Hill went out, who was hugely important. And then they lost Chris Olave for a game. They lost Rashid Shaheed for the season. They lost Derek Carr for 3 games. And they were just a complete disaster with Spencer Rattler, who, by the way, has no future as a quarterback in the NFL. Sorry, I said it. He's done. Now that they have all those people back and they get the Panthers this Sunday, the Saints, can they make it respectable enough before the end of the season? Like, win 5 or 6 more games so that the ownership doesn't just blow the whole thing up?
Well, I'm a lot more concerned with, they've obviously had their offensive struggles, but man, this is a team that the defense has done them absolutely no favors here in the last 5 games. They've given.
Oh, by the way, on that, Kool-Aid McKinstry and Marshawn Lattimore and Tyrann Mathieu have been out the last 2 games. The 2 corners are still gone against the Panthers.
Right. And they're giving up 32 points a game over their last 5. I don't know how you overcome that.
It doesn't help when Spencer Rattler is throwing it to the other time.
I understand that, and you're going to have longer. You're going to have more sustained drives, and you're going to have the offense hopefully equal out the time of possession a little bit. But this is still a great defensive unit that does not look good to me. Now, I don't doubt that they look this good this weekend against the Panthers, who I think, Loud, back me up on this, are going to be going with Bryce Young again, or is Andy Dalton
Bryce Young again
still out, right? Yeah. That's just an absolutely historically dreadful team with Bryce Young. at the controls. So I think Saints can cover the 7.5 there and put some points on the board. And then you'll get tested next weekend when Atlanta comes to town. So I don't hate them this weekend. It is nice to get all those offensive pieces back, but I think this is a defensive unit that still has problems, especially when they're not at full strength.
All right, some of the more interesting games to me: Dallas coming to Atlanta. Dallas catching 3.5 points, going to the Falcons. I looked at this line originally and I went, oh, I love the Falcons here. But I'm hearing a lot of people in the chattering classes of sports betting talking about how Dallas is the play in this game. I don't have an official pick on this yet. Your thoughts on just, anything that you want to throw out there in terms of that one?
Well, I've seen this line go from 3.5 earlier in the week to 3. I'd be curious what Scott has it out there at his book. But so the public is jumping on the Cowboys there a little bit, not just the sharps. There apparently is,
which is not
1 minute. 1 minute.
Cowboys are always over bet.
Right. You're gonna pay the Cowboy tax, and you're gonna get a little break if you're going the other way. I'm not as convinced as you are, Loud. I need to dig in just a little bit more, but as it is for me right now, it's officially no play on Friday night.
All right, Scott Keyport, tell people anything trend wise you're seeing at York Sportsbook that you think is important for people to know.
Now we got that game sitting at 3.5. It looks like it actually in some books was under 3, so it crossed that line, which is a kind of a big deal. Other than that, we haven't seen anything really strange yet coming in this week that red flags anything. We've been watching a lot of horse racing. It's Breeders' Cup weekend.
Yeah, there you go. By the way, Raiders have backdoor covered in 2 games in a row and screwed me. Denver is 6-2 against the spread. FYI, a lot better than Baltimore. Chargers and Cleveland, those teams go under a lot and they're playing each other. And New Orleans and Tennessee both go under a lot and they're playing each other. I'll leave you with that. This is Loud Esmond. Thanks for following us here on Steer the Line. Until next Friday.